Hello, YouTube. I'm Vince White. I am an employment attorney, and we are continuing our series trying to help people to package their case to approach an employment attorney with their potential claim, right? Um, I spent a lot of time in this channel saying, hey, you shouldn't hire me, go hire local counsel, right? It'll be a better deal for you. Local counsel's already there. They don't have to fly attorneys around the country, so it will be cheaper. So go talk to local counsel. They might be awesome, right? And then it kind of, sometimes people will say to me, well, I don't know how to approach local counsel. So I'm making this playlist specifically to help people to obtain representation from talented attorneys who they actually like working with, um, and get the representation they need, right? So today, what we're specifically going to address is repetition when talking to the attorney. And I'll give you the problem, then I'll give you a little bit of context and maybe a couple of suggestions. So here's the problem. I often will spend 20 to 30 minutes on the phone with somebody when I'm trying to see if I can potentially help them, right? They'll call us up, and we are blessed with a curse, which is an incredibly high call volume, right? There's a lot of people calling our firm, and realistically, if I'm going to give each and every single person half an hour, if I'm working an 8-hour day, that means if I don't eat lunch, I get to talk to 16 people, right? And so I'm pretty firm about keeping those calls to half an hour and not going over that. One, because you should be able to tell me how I can help you in half an hour. And two, because if you go over half an hour, then someone else loses, right? It's not going to be me. I'm not going to lose part of my life. I'm not going to. I could return calls 24/7, and it wouldn't be enough, right? So it wouldn't make sense for me to just stay until I'm done. So I call it, the end of the day, like I can't necessarily talk to everyone. So if I let you go over half an hour, that means someone's losing 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, or their entire call because time is gone, right? So I have to be a little bit firm about how long I can talk to people who are not my clients. Now, generally, that's not an issue because it's fairly easy to say, hey, here is what happened to me. I think it was discrimination, or I think it was sexual harassment. And then I can say, oh, yeah, I mean, it sounds like it could be. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you think that? And we have a conversation about why you think that and some of the evidence. And then we talk about maybe some options and some things you might want to do and some questions you might have, right? And all of that can generally fit into half an hour. Where it starts to be an issue is when people repeat themselves. And there's a real common thing that goes on in this industry where people are under a lot of stress. It's never a good thing if you have to talk to an employment attorney. It's never good. Nobody's ever like, the only people who are happy about calling me are the people who are doing custom executive compensation packages. And they're like, I made it to the custom package level of my company, and now I need to hire somebody to negotiate me the best compensation package in all the land, right? And those people are very excited, let me tell you. But everybody else who calls me, it's always a horrible day. It's not the worst day of their life, but it's in the top 20 of the worst days of their life, often, right? So they tend to get stuck in these modes of communication where they'll tell you part of their story, and it sounds silly, but it's really, really common. Then they'll just start over again. And it's really, really hard to nudge them out of that pattern. And you can't really do it politely because, from my experience, it can be very jarring for them to be nudged off that pattern. That pattern is perhaps, and I'm no mental health professional, but that pattern might be a coping mechanism or something that's giving them some form of comfort. And so if I would, somebody has gone through their story twice or some part of their story twice, and the conversation is no longer advancing, I might say to them, hey, if I've been listening very intently to the first 2 times you told me the story. If I can repeat the story back to you, can we move on to the next part of the story? And in my mind, that's a very nice thing to say to prove I can show you how well I'm listening. I can verbatim give your story back to you. That is not at all how people receive it, right? That how they receive it is, you don't care about me, you're making fun of me, and I want to keep telling you the story over and over and over again because it feels good for me. It feels good. Someone's listening to me finally, and it feels good, and I want to keep repeating this part of the story over and over and over and over. And if you let them, they will do. I've done this. You can let people go for 4.5 hours, and they would just keep repeating the story. Not that those are stupid people. It's not that those are people dealing with a mental disability or anything like that, right? It's something, it's like a pattern humans get into. I'm sure that it would happen to me as well, as like a coping mechanism. And it is really common and really fascinating to watch. And kind of as I mentioned, getting people out of that pattern is very jarring for them. It's akin to, like, the way I perceive it as somebody on the outside, it looks like they're being woken from like a sound slumber, like against their wishes. And there's like a level of like anger and surprise, and like they come out of that pattern swinging, right? Which is never great when you're trying to help somebody if they end up screaming at you, right? Not what we want to invest half an hour in terms of trying to help someone and they just end up screaming and they don't get any help. Not a good use of anyone's time, right? So here's what I would say to do, because a lot of attorneys will just hang up on you. I don't do that, but a lot of attorneys do, or they'll just tell you, as per some of my other videos, like, hey, go file your EEOC. And what they're actually doing is scribbling their notes. This person can't share her or his story. They can't get through their own story. And if they can't share their story, then they're not a very good witness, and the case is not, it doesn't matter what happened in the case, it doesn't matter how good the case might be, if they can't tell the story, if they can't communicate because they get stuck repeating themselves and then get nasty when you try to get them to stop repeating themselves, you're not going to have a lot of success, right? In terms of making compelling arguments and putting together, fashioning a compelling story to a judge or a jury. So what I'd recommend is 2 things. 1, enter the call knowing that the employment attorney has a limited amount of time and they're not your mental health professional. So they're not there to make you feel better. They are there to discuss tactical options of how you can fight back, and that could incidentally make you feel better. But their job, they're not being paid at all. You're a potential client. You haven't even hired this attorney. They're not being compensated. They're listening to you in the hopes they can help you, right? So be a little respectful of their time, but also just be cognizant that if you spend half an hour repeating yourself, it means you have 0 questions answered, 0 presentations from the attorney, 0 value of the attorney's potential expertise. You've gained nothing besides that you felt heard, potentially. And even then, you're not going to feel heard that much, because at the half an hour mark, it's very likely the attorney, if you're lucky, went half an hour, is just going to end the conversation and say, good luck with this, because they can't get you to stop repeating yourself, right? And I feel like people who don't take potential client calls from plaintiffs are going to think I'm being crazy when I say that people just, it's very common that people repeat themselves over and over and over again. And I just need you to trust me. If I've ever like given you any value in this channel, please just trust me that this is very common. This happens every day of my life for the past 13 years, right? So this is very, very common. The next thing I want you to do, the second thing, is jot your story down. If you can, do it on a word processor. Open Microsoft Word, jot your story down, put check boxes, little boxes by each point of your story that you want to make. And as you're going through the story with the attorney, print out a bunch of copies of your story. And as you're going through the story with the attorney, check the boxes as you share each important point. And if you start to go back to something, say to yourself, no, I felt I conveyed that point. And we need to move forward because we do have a limited amount of time. And we need to convey the story and then discuss the story, discuss options, and answer your questions, the potential client's questions. And so this checklist strategy does seem to help people resist the urge to get stuck in that loop. It also annoys people. Like me telling people to do this, like I've had the conversation with people. I'm like stress touching my face because this happens so much. I've had the conversation with, listen, you are stuck in a loop right now, but I do want to help you. You've burned through half your hour. We have not yet had a discussion. You've only told me 1/3 of your story, and you're stuck. You've told me the story 5 times now. I need you to stop. And what I'll do for you specifically, because I do want to help, if you spend tonight, if you jot your story down, and you tell me the points one at a time and cross them out or checkbox them, whatever it is, when you're done telling me each point, I'll give you another half an hour. I want to listen to you. I want to hear you. I want to see if I can help. And again, in my mind, I think I'm being Mr. Cool Guy gonna help. Generally, people do not agree. So I guess they think it's patronizing, or they're just annoyed that I'm cutting them off at the half an hour point because they still haven't shared their story with me, or whatever it is. So maybe this advice, maybe you don't like this advice. But I will tell you, if you do this, if you jot your story, the points of your story that you want to hit with this attorney, and go through them one by one and check them off when you're done, the presentation you make of your case to this attorney will be exponentially better, exponentially more compelling, clearer, more understand, like everything about it will be better. And you will then be better for it because the attorney will have a better idea of what you're dealing with. So perhaps can give you better advice, answer your questions better, give you more full and well-considered answers to your questions. Also, the attorney will have more time to answer your questions, which hopefully is something the attorney wants to do, right? There's a lot of bad attorneys in the world. Many of them don't want to answer your questions. I have a low opinion of those attorneys. But if you are efficient with how you tell your story, I will spend the rest of that time trying to answer your questions and help you, right? So even if this suggestion annoys you, even if you think I'm a jerk, do it anyway. And then just call somebody else. Don't call me. Call your local counsel. And if you want, tell local counsel, this jerk on the internet said I should do a list with check boxes as I go through my story. That guy was a dummy. And local counsel is going to be like, yeah, that guy's a jerk. But do it. Yeah, let's try it out. But that guy's a jerk. But let's do the check boxes. And I hope very much that you have a wonderful conversation, you get the help you need, and that attorney can assist you because that attorney now understands your story. Like and subscribe. It helps me to help more people. And that's probably a good thing, I think.